Well, my daughter Katrina and I are writing a book called Eat Smart in Denmark that will be a sort of foodie guide to Danish food. We realize that pizza is actually the #1 dish in Denmark right now, but if people want to know what real Danish food is, this will help them discover it, and also if they're in Denmark, help them decipher the menu and figure out what foods to buy in the grocery store. And we also include a lot of history of Danish food, right back to the Viking times and even earlier than that. So it's quite interesting.
That's fantastic. So what is the most interesting or exciting food in Denmark?
Well, there's, of course, a real resurgence in interest in smørrebrød, which is a personal favorite of mine. And we finally actually have a smørrebrød restaurant in New York at Omans, which is something brand new. So I would say that smørrebrød, of course, there's a great interest in pastry and traditional dishes using regional ingredients such as seafood, pork, of course, lots of herring, and grains like rye to make rugbrød, which is something that dates back hundreds of centuries in Denmark, and the rest of the world is now discovering how tasty and nutritious it is.
I heard, this is kind of a side thing, but I heard that they have in Denmark now something that's kind of like sushi, but rugbrød, but small ones.
Yep. A few years ago, the Royal Cafe decided to experiment with something that they call Smooshy. And these are small smørrebrød for people that just want to sample different flavors or don't want as big a meal as most Danes might eat at lunch. But the Royal Cafe and their Smooshy have been gone one better. There's a new company in Copenhagen that makes mini smørrebrød that are about half the size of a Smooshy. So they're getting tinier and tinier.
It's a fantastic idea because you get to sample this, right? So I'm wondering if you have any comments about the fact that Danish food is not so well known in the US, or is that true?
Oh, I think it's very true. Maybe people get intimidated by the challenge of trying to say rugbrød med fløde, or maybe they just haven't heard of much Danish food. Certainly kringle is well known around the US, and you can get Danish pastry, or what's called Danish pastry, a lot of places. I don't really consider most of it to be of the caliber that a Dane would find exciting. But, there's the temptation to say that Danish cuisine is on the verge of being discovered. Certainly having Noma voted the best restaurant in the world 3 years in a row has really increased interest in Danish cuisine, because Noma stands for Nordic mad, or Nordic food. And so it's based on traditional Scandinavian cuisine using local ingredients, fresh ingredients, and cooking with the seasons.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I mean, is that kind of a part of the book's mission, is to not only bring people to Denmark, but also bring the Danish food culture to America?
Well, I think that the Eat Smart Guide series started quite a few years ago in order to help people know what to order when they went to a country that they weren't familiar with. Joan Peterson, who's the editor, had been to a country where she just didn't know the history of the cuisine, she didn't know the specialties, and she opened a menu and said, I have no idea what this food is. Of course, in Denmark, everyone speaks English, so it's not as much of a challenge. But I do think that to know what has been traditional in Danish food, how it's changed over the years, is a fascinating story. And with more Danes in America and more interest in Danish food, I do hope that the book will not just be used by those going to Denmark, but also those who want to learn more about it.
So now my show is mostly about people in the US. Do you have any recommendations about what people do if they're interested in Danish cuisine over here?
Well, we're going to include a list of places that you can buy Scandinavian ingredients, and we do list the restaurants and bakeries in the US, and also there are a number of websites that specialize in Scandinavian foods that do ship. Danes.tv is also a periodical that always has ads from companies that sell Danish foods in the US, and their Christmas issue especially is chock full of resources that a Dane in the US might find very helpful if they're homesick for Danish food.
Perfect. Do you have anything you want to add or you want people to know?
Well, my daughter Katrina and I are writing the book together, and that's been a lot of fun for us, in part because as soon as she was born, we took her to Denmark. I mean, that was part of my interest and passion that my husband Dean and I wanted to share with Katrina and our son Eric. And so having the chance to work on the book together with her, and for her to bring her background as a dietitian to the book, has been wonderful. I did want to say, though, that it's called Eat Smart in Denmark. It's not called Eat Healthy in Denmark. There's a real fondness for butter and cream and all kinds of delicious ingredients that might not be considered to be exactly the leanest cuisine in the U.S., but the Danes know how to do all things in moderation, including eating pastries and fattening foods. So I think we're hoping that Americans will bike more, eat more reasonably, and try some Danish food.